2024, a year of hard work, growth, and a lot of rewards. From planting to taking care of our crops, to harvesting, to taking care of our animals, our poultry, our rabbits. This year has been filled with a lot of triumph and challenges, and a lot of countless moments of connecting with nature. So join us today as we take you through the year that has been, as we reflect on the highs, the lessons that we've learned along the way, as well as the unforgettable experiences that we've had in the year 2024. So in 2024, one of the things that we've come to enjoy is harvesting our own food from our farm, organically grown, and we don't add any synthetic fertilizers. We make our own compost from the chicken droppings that we get and some weeds that we get from the farm and also the kitchen waste that we get. And that is the only thing that we feed to our crops at the moment. So behind me, you can see very healthy collard greens. Actually, collard greens are one of those vegetables that we are 100% self-sufficient in. For the past 2.5 years, we haven't purchased any collard greens from the market. We've grown them ourselves. And one of the ways that we do that to be able to supply enough for ourselves is to have different collard greens maturing at different times. And because this is the kienyeji collard greens that take a while before they actually seed. In fact, the last kienyeji collard greens that we had were about 2 years. I uprooted them just because they were in an area that had a lot of erosion, but they had not yet gone to seed. So I expect these crops they've been here for about 6 months or so. So I expect them to go for over 2 years or even more, and we'll be harvesting from them for a long while. That being said, we also plant at different stages. So you can see ahead of me, just right here, we have the smaller ones that we planted. Actually, in this area, we had some potatoes. And crop rotation is one of those things that we do on this farm. So after harvesting the potatoes, we actually now put in some new collard greens just to make sure that we don't run out. And uh, the reason why we added this is because we'll be decommissioning some of the sacks that we planted some items. And now I think is the best time to take you to some of the sacks that we've been planting. So a while back, this year actually, we had a lot of sacks on the farm with collard greens, with pepper. You can see like this one has some big pepper. We have these ones with gooseberries. But one of the things we realized is that when it rains, the water doesn't actually seep through very well. And maybe it's how we planted. Probably should have put some stones in the middle or something. I've seen some people do that just for the soil not to harden. And also you can see the sacks, they are wearing off after barely a year. So that's the reason why we actually planted the new collard greens you can see here, because anytime from now, we'll be decommissioning these plants as the sacks are actually at the end of life.
So in 2024, in terms of poultry, I think we achieved one of the highest population of poultry on the farm that we had never anticipated. And how did this come about? There was a time the chicken were laying so many eggs, and we decided to try out using turkeys because they have a larger wingspan and they're very good on sitting on eggs. So we'd give a turkey about 50 eggs, and then they would hatch as many as 40 or 35 or 36. So in a span of about 4 months, we had about 140 chicken on the farm. We had about 36 guinea fowls. We had about between 16 and 20 turkeys. So you can imagine at that point we had almost 200 poultry on the farm, which was a lot. So once we had achieved this large population on the farm, now it meant at that point we were self-sufficient, especially on chicken. We were self-sufficient on chicken on the farm. That is, we had sufficient eggs. In fact, we never bought eggs for the last close to 2 years. And then we also, in terms of white meat, we had our own white meat on the farm. We are self-sufficient on that. And it's been a a year of consuming our own birds, different ways. We've been consuming our own eggs. So in 2024, this was one of our biggest achievements again, yeah, because we are able to produce sufficient meat and eggs on our own farm. Our self-sufficient journey in terms of poultry went very fast. I think we had been farming for close to 1.5 years when this population explosion came up, and we were self-sufficient in terms of our own meat and our own eggs, which was a very good, again, achievement for 2024. It's something that we celebrate up to now, because now we managed that population properly. Now we have reached a point there whereby we have sufficient meat on the farm. We keep a population of poultry that we can actually sustain, and which is sufficient to give us enough meat and eggs every month.
So one of the other things that we did in 2024 was to add the number of raised beds that we have on the farm. So here I'm standing right next to one of the 2 beds that are already complete. We need to do a third one around this area. And this is one of the areas where we've not been producing anything despite the amount of effort to make the soil okay. It's next to what we call the blue gum trees. So this area, which is also next to blue gum trees, which also inhibit the growth of crops and also a lot of erosion. It's the steepest part of this farm that we are in. A lot of erosion. So whenever you plant anything, the roots are exposed and things like that. The topsoil runs. So raised beds was one of the ways that we've used on this farm to control erosion. And you can see for this, given the what used to happen on this area, we never used to harvest anything actually. I think the only time we harvested some very little carrots from this area, but now it looks like it's going to give us quite a bit. We have some tomatoes on this area, we have some skuma wiki, we have some beetroot, some spinach, as well as some carrots. So I'm really looking forward to 2025 for these crops to mature and to give us a better produce than we would have had without the raised bed.
So as much as 2024 was a very good year in terms of poultry, we did experience some challenges. And in being real with our audience, we always like giving both sides of the story. So in terms when the population had really exploded, we had so many birds on the farm, which we had not anticipated. We experienced some diseases. These were coming about because of the housing and the cleanliness and all that. When there are more birds, there's a lot of work to be done, which we had not anticipated. But yeah, but we had issues of diseases. We lost quite a number of birds to that. And also remember, we had a video out on turkeys, the blackhead disease that really causes a lot of turkeys. Uh, and then so we have actually talked about how we actually manage to manage all this, what we do here on the farm to manage diseases in our previous videos. You can watch on our channel. In terms of feeding them, it was a challenge at that time, but luckily we had released land and we harvested a lot of maize. We had about 390 kg sacks, which came in handy to feed the birds at this point and to fill that gap that we had. And then we are also planning to, because we saw that when you grow our own food, in terms like maize, and the chicken are able to consume, it saves us a lot in terms of buying food for the chicken, however much they actually forage outside. But yeah, we're planning to do that in 2025, grow more maize that can help feed the chicken at least. The other thing that I need to mention in 2024, we were able to sell some guinea fowls. Actually, I remember I had to drive to Nairobi and to deliver to 21 guinea fowls to a customer who had a ranch somewhere, I think in Arrowroot. I was going to keep them. That was a success again because that cash went to feeding the birds on the farm again. We also we sold some turkeys locally. And that's another amazing thing. People have started now embracing rearing turkeys over here, and they always come and ask whether we have turkeys for sale. So yeah, we sold some turkeys so that we can manage the population again, which was a good thing because that also brought some income that was able to feed the rest of the population.
So in 2024, we enjoyed a lot of harvests from our farm, and I'm just going to name just but a few things that we harvested from this area. So for the very first time, we noticed we had yellow tree tomatoes, and we actually harvested them for the first time. We've been harvesting red tree tomatoes from our farm, but this year we actually noticed the other tree was yellow tree tomatoes. We also harvested some passion fruits, harvested spring onions throughout the year, harvested lettuce, some pepper for our chicken, a lot of mint. We also harvested strawberries. for quite a while, and I can see there are also some. We also still have some ripe ones at the moment. They're actually very healthy, organically grown, and they taste very nice because we allow them to fully mature and ripen on the farm. So other things that we harvested uh, in 2024 include a lot of pumpkins. We harvested a lot of pumpkins. We also harvested a lot of sugarcane and shared with the neighbors. I think we had an overproduction of sugarcane. Right now, the mature sugarcane have reduced quite a bit because we had to share out quite a lot so that to avoid them going bad. The other thing that we also harvested was sweet potatoes. In fact, we had a raised bed where we had sweet potatoes, and that's where we harvested some of them. And in the same, after harvesting the sweet potatoes, as we spoke about crop rotation, so after harvesting the sweet potatoes, we actually planted beans and harvested them as green beans. So these are some of the things that we harvested in this area. And actually, obviously, the collard greens that we just showed you, we harvested quite a lot of that, and also some bulb onions. So we are not yet sufficient in our bulb onions, but it's one of the things that I'm looking forward to. There's still a few things I need to figure out, but we did quite some harvest about on the bulb onions. And last but not least, we also harvested some eggplants. We harvested some basil. So basil and mint are some of the herbs that we have on the farm. And we also harvested quite a number of cucumbers in 2024. Yeah. For this season, the current season, we don't have a lot of cucumbers, but in 2025, we plan on adding the number of cucumbers that we have on the farm.
My highlight in terms of crops for 2024 has been arrowroot. I love arrowroot personally, and initially there are no arrowroots this where we stay around here. People didn't grow this kind of crops, and so sometime in 2023, I think was the last quarter or the last quarter of 2023, we looked for seedlings and actually tried some. We had less than, I think, 15 or 20 seedlings. We planted on the upper part of our farm. We had not expanded to this area, but we planted up there, and they did amazingly well. And then we were able to harvest. And for me, it was, I cannot explain the feeling, but I'd never seen arrowroots growing physically in my life, in my long life in this earth. But that was the first time we planted them, and they did very well. And it was fun, even just seeing them grow and harvesting them and preparing for breakfast as a meal. And so arrowroots for me are a very good crop, and I'm really happy that in 2024 we are able to achieve what we have achieved so far in terms of farming arrowroots. You can see how big these arrowroots are, and they are around 4.5 months old because we planted them the same time with the maize. And for me, it's so amazing that a crop that has never grown here before can do so well. And it's actually, the other thing I need to let you know is that once we started planting them and people saw how well they're doing, some people have actually started planting them around here on their farms, which for us is a good thing because it feels like we're impacting on the community around us. And so arrowroots, we've always looked at a way of replacing, as a family, being self-sufficient in terms of what to eat for breakfast. And as you know, from our videos, we are hoping to do goats at some point. We already have the structure up. Of course, in Africa, when you take tea, we take with bread or some starch. And so we are looking for a way of replacing buying bread from the shops and eat our own starch from the farm. Arrowroot is one of the best ways to do this. And we actually on our way there. And I think maybe in 2025, we're going to be self-sufficient on arrowroots. We're actually going to plant them in more places. And since we are a family of 4, we don't need a lot. We just need to harvest a few every day for our breakfast. But yeah, arrowroots, very good crop. I would recommend to anyone. I personally do not enjoy sweet potatoes as much because I get heartburn when I consume them. But arrowroots, I have no problem at all. I find them very sweet. I can actually eat them alone just like that. So arrowroot, so 2024 was a very successful year for us in terms of arrowroots. And you can actually see the journey that we took through because we went through with you because I'm sure we did videos of when you are planting the first arrowroot, when you're harvesting the first time, and also when you're expanding to the other part of the farm. And we actually have been keeping you updated on how fast these ones have grown and how healthy they look.
So in 2024, one of the other things we did was plant beans on a very large scale compared to what we used to do before. So in this project where we had the new farm that we had, we planted two kinds of beans, one that was yellow beans and the other one that was maroonish with some white dots. I'm not sure of the variety names, but the key highlight for us was that we were able to actually harvest a very, very good amount of beans. We're actually still consuming the beans as we speak, and it was one of the key highlights for this year. Now, for us to be able to harvest those beans, we had to put in a lot of hard work. It was the very first time that we were planting by ourselves on a very large scale. So it took in a lot of time to plant the beans and planting them on this whole area, different kinds of beans, but mostly they were yellow beans, which are the ones we are still consuming up to now. Um, but for us, the rewards that we got from that big harvest will not compare to the amount of work that we put in. Plus, it's still a way for us to exercise. So one of the things we usually say is whatever work that we are doing on the farm, it's just a way of us keeping our bodies fit. So it's not really, it was not really a bother to us that we had to put in that amount of work. But again, the kind of rewards that we got, growing our own food organically and being able to harvest in plenty compared to what we used to do before, we can only get better at it. So in 2025, we're still looking forward to growing more beans at a larger scale, just like we did. So just like we did in 2024.
As I explained earlier about Arrowroot, we are trying to, in 2025, in 2024, our efforts were, in 2025, we get out of buying bread from the shop and be self-sufficient on the starches for breakfast. And so in that aspect, we actually tried cassava again on our upper part of the farm. We harvested, but we harvested very few. I think the area we planted was not good because I think cassava needs a lot of loose but well-drained soil so that the tubers can grow well. So we brought down here and actually scaled it up. So we have a number of cassava plants. We have this line here. Then we have another one not far from here. Yeah, but in 2024, again, we are able to grow arrowroots and cassava. As I think they're called tubers that we're going to be taking for breakfast. So this is another highlight for me again. Uh, Although we've not actually cooked or prepared cassava in our home, we actually don't even know how it's done. But we've been learning online, and we are prepared that come 2025, when this cassava is actually mature, we're going to be able to prepare them again for breakfast. We're actually looking forward to trying new things like making crisps or cassava chips and also arrowroot chips in 2025. So in 2024, we are able to actually grow these tubers, both arrowroots and cassava, that are going to help us be self-sufficient in terms of what we eat for breakfast in 2025. So it's another highlight for me. Where we planted them along the tunnels we have, so that you can prevent some water and soil running down. But you can see they are doing very well, and I'm very sure we're going to get a very good harvest in 2025.
So in 2024, one of the major highlights was actually harvesting some maize on a very large scale. So we had some land that we had leased somewhere in a place called Kuria, and we also talked about the challenges of leasing land, and we link that video in this description so you can check it out. We talked about in details of the challenges that we encountered, but all in all, we were able to harvest a very fast, big bumper maize harvest, yellow maize. We didn't add any manure because we didn't have enough, and actually it was very far from our home, and even the neighbors there did not have enough for us to put on our farm. Neither did we use any chemical fertilizers, but we were able to actually get 3 very big sacks of yellow maize that we consumed alongside our chicken. We had quite a number of poultry that also we split the maize for our own use and also for the chicken. So that being said, we used the same maize that we harvested to plant in this area. And actually, one of the things that we've been enjoying for the past couple of weeks is just harvesting this green maize. I can see now most of it is actually drying, but we've been enjoying harvesting this green maize, boiling it, roasting it. I think one of our favorite snacks is actually roasted maize and boiled maize, apart from other things that we consume. But for us, it's a key highlight that I think a lot of us can relate to when you go to the village. Some of the things that you do is just go to the farm, harvest your green maize, roast it, take it with a cup of tea, and we also enjoy that. So that has been also a key highlight for us in this year. So right now, a lot of the maize is actually drying up, and we'll be ready to harvest it sometime in January. I think it will be very dry, but for now, we are just feasting on the green maize and appreciating what nature is giving back to us after taking care of it. So in 2024, we also expanded our sweet potato farming. Remember that we had mentioned before when we first came to this area, people had stopped growing sweet potatoes for a very long time. But for us, we were very open-minded. We wanted to try out all the kinds of crops that we could, and sweet potatoes was one of that crop. It did very well, and so in 2024, when we started this project, we also expanded here. Now, it came with its own challenges because in the upper part of the farm, we had not dealt with underground mice or moles. But now, when we came to this area, so all along this line, we had planted sweet potatoes, and as they were growing, we noticed that several areas started drying out. And what we realized that we were dealing with some underground mice and more. We did actually ask someone to come and trap them. Got a few, but I think the issue still persists. So for now, there are still some areas that even after replacing several times, we still have some gaps. But for the areas that it's actually doing very well, it's also acting as a cover crop and just to help avoid the issues of the soil erosion that we have on this area. So now the underground mice did not just stop at the sweet potatoes. It also went to the Irish potatoes that we had planted. So now the moles did not stop at the sweet potatoes. We also planted some Irish potatoes here because we wanted to expand the uh, we wanted to grow potatoes on a wider area than we used to, just to be able to have a variety of starches that we can eat. So after planting the potatoes here, they were doing very well, but then we started realizing that they are drying prematurely. And when you could actually pick the crop, and even the original potato that you had planted was not there. So the moths did a very uh, bad job, and they ate almost half or three-quarter of the Irish potatoes we planted here, but we still got a very small harvest. Not sure in 2025 that we are going to plant Irish potatoes here. Probably now we'll just plant them on the upper part of the farm and give them ample space, and then we can plant things that the underground mice or moles do not consume as often as they did with the potatoes.
Another success that we need to mention in 2024 was a rabbit project. And this was in many ways because I remember we informed you we stopped consuming rabbit meat at some time during the early in 2024. But then we had a project where we are giving rabbits to school children, especially the ones in primary school. So that during the holidays, they are busy because keeping rabbits for them is a good activity. They need to go look for the food. And once they give birth and they're mature ones, they're able to sell off and use that money to buy their own things that they need, either whether they need books or uniform or shoes or anything like that. We have a few success stories from some of the children to give rabbits to. They've actually multiplied now, and they have a number of rabbits, and they've actually been selling and using the money for their own benefits. So this is what we plan again to expand in 2025. Once the rabbit population increases, it's actually reduced now. We have like 2 males, 2 females, and 5 young ones, because we gave out a lot of them. So in 2025, you're going to expand this project again to benefit more children around this area.
Now, growing up, I had never actually seen what a groundnut plant looks like. But in 2024, after we started this new project, I was very determined to grow groundnuts. And we actually had a very nice time with the kids planting these groundnuts. They're actually very excited to plant groundnuts, and they're looking forward to actually harvesting them. Uh, it's actually my very first time to see what a groundnut plant looks like. Was in this year 2024. At least now, if I go somewhere, I can be able to tell that this is actually a groundnut plant. But before I couldn't, but now I can. So what we're actually looking forward to is to be able to make our own peanut butter. So I'm really waiting for that experience. We're not even sure at what point they're supposed to be harvested, but we learn with time. And that's the beauty of this self-sufficiency journey of ours, that we like to experiment and to learn as we go. So when it comes time to harvesting, I think we've seen some people say that when the crop starts wilting, then that's when you know the groundnuts are ready. So we learn with time at what is the right time to harvest. For now, I can see most of them are flowering. They have some tiny yellow flowers. So most likely we'll be harvesting these early 2025. But 2024 was a key highlight for me in just being able to grow these groundnuts for the family.
Remember, one of our projects in 2024 that we kept on updating you was to start a dairy goat farming, which we have not. We actually have the shelter ready, but we've not started brought in any goats yet. One of the things that delayed us for not bringing the goats was having the food for the goats, and we planted napier grass. These are the improved, but I don't know what it's called. I think it's a Chinese. I'm not sure whether it's pak chong or what the name is, but this is improved napier grass we planted so that we can be able to feed our dairy goats. And a couple of months later, it's actually grown quite a bit. You can see it's almost what, 1.5 meters. So what's going to happen is that, again, this type of napier grass is not local to this area. I got it from someone in Kajiado in Nairobi, and I tried it here for the first time. So this was another milestone for our farm in 2024, being able to grow the improved version of napier grass. And this is going to help us in 2025 when we bring in our dairy goats, so that we can be able to feed them from our farm. We don't have to struggle going to look for food somewhere else or buying goat feed. We'll actually feed the dairy goats from this section of the farm. So yeah, this is another highlight for 2024, and we are really happy about it, with the progress.
Now, in 2024, we were very lucky to inherit another piece of land from our parents. And you can see behind me, we just came from where we showed you we harvested our first beans, then all the maize that we've grown, the areas we've done the arrowroot, the cassavas, the groundnuts, and also the area that we've done the napier grass. So 2024, we actually now expanded, and that's why we did not have any more need for any leased land, because we were sure the new project would handle the amount of crops that we actually wanted to grow and harvest for our family. And this area is actually about 278 feet in length. The width actually varies because some areas are wide and some are narrow, but the length is around 278 feet. I think one of the questions we get asked a lot on our YouTube channel is, what is the size of your farm? So for this area, that is the length, but the width actually varies. Yes, we don't actually know the actual size of this land, but the width on average is probably about 60 feet, 60 feet. So you can do your math with that. Yeah.
So another milestone that we are really happy for 2024 is a dairy goat project, which is ongoing very well. We've done the food for the goats. I've shown you the napier grass that we planted. It's already now 1.5 meters. And then we did the goat shed also in 2024. Cost quite a bit. We have a video purely just explaining on the goat shed, the process of building it, how much it cost, and all that. We'll put the link in this video. For those who are interested, you can actually go and watch. Yeah, but we've got projects halfway done now. Just means to bring in the goats. We're actually looking for pure breeds, either of Saanen or what's called Toggenburg, or the other dairy goats. And there's a challenge in Kenya getting these goats because I've been looking for a farmer who controls even in breeding to make sure the goats don't inbreed, so we get good quality goats that are going to produce good milk. So it's a long process. Around here, we've tried to find, but they're not there. No one can assure you that the goats have not done any breeding, or they've mixed with the local goat and the Toggenburg or the Saanen. So it's still a process of searching. We have to take our time and find the proper goat, because our plan is in 2025 to be self-sufficient in terms of milk. We don't buy milk from the shop again. We just be milking our own goats and taking that milk. So yeah, so we're really happy that this project is on course and it's doing very well. And we've actually covered, because the biggest cost, I think, again, on keeping either animals or poultry is feeding. So we planted the food for the goats ahead of us bringing the goats over here, which will help us a lot in terms of cutting costs. Yeah, so in 2024, again, something we're very proud of, and we'll keep you updated. When the goats come in, we're going to keep you updated, and also going to involve you in how we manage the goats properly to make sure you get enough, sufficient milk from the goats to feed the family.
Yes, so another key highlight for us was being in 2024 was the very first year that we managed to harvest our very first bunch of bananas from here actually. And we went on to harvest 2 more bunches. So in 2024, we harvested 3 very big bunches of bananas. At the moment, we currently have 4 types of bananas that we have. There's this one, we don't know the names though. There's this one that really gets a very huge bunch. There's this one that we were told even gets a bigger bunch compared to this one. We are yet to see. I think it's just a couple of months old on the farm. Then we have this other type. The bunch is a bit smaller uh, compared to what we got here. And then at another place in the farm, we planted the sweet bananas. What we plan to do in 2025 is to introduce another variety, some ripening variety that we'll get probably from the central area of Kenya, probably get some from Murang'a or Makuyu that we can plant on our farm. The big bananas that usually ripens, I'm sure some of you know those varieties. So we don't have that variety here, but we would definitely like to have it. The 4 varieties here, the 3 varieties here that you can see, they are all for cooking. Then the sweet banana is for ripening, and then we want to introduce other ripening varieties so that we have a variety of bananas on this farm to keep enjoying as the years come by. And I think one of the most beautiful things that I've come to enjoy about the farm is that for things like bananas, just plant one, take care of it, and it's going to give you bananas for as long as you can imagine. So that's one of the most beautiful things that I actually enjoy about our self-sufficiency life. One of the other key highlights for this year was actually our front yard came alive with the new grass that we planted this year, 2024. We spent a lot of time on this front yard with our kids, playing, cooking, eating, relaxing. It's our it's one of those things that we missed when we were living in the city because we didn't have somewhere like this where we could just sit and relax and breathe in some fresh air, read a book, just do anything that you want. It's one of our favorite places to be. The flowers are also blooming so well. Planted a few roses actually, and they actually gave us some very interesting rose colors that you're going to see, rose flower colors. And then also, uh, one thing to note when you have turkeys in the farm that roam about, you can see that some of our flowers do not have leaves. It's because turkeys are very good at eating your flowers. So if you keep turkeys, that's one thing that you can keep in mind. But one thing I've realized is that they only eat the crops that have small leaves, the flowers that have small leaves. The other flowers that have big leaves, they actually don't touch them. At least in our experience, that's what we've seen. So if you have turkeys, probably what you can try to do is actually plant flowers with bigger sized leaves, and probably they'll not be interested in them. But for the flowers with smaller leaves, that's a delicacy for our turkeys. And that's okay because, it's still our ecosystem. We live with them, they are family. So it's a very beautiful place that we come to relax, even as we watch the chicken and the turkeys just roaming around.
So 2024 has been a very fruitful and successful year for us. Despite all the challenges that we had, we were able to overcome them and actually flourish. Um, we harvested so much from the farm. We have had a lot of first times on the farm in terms of peanuts, in terms of arrowroots, in terms of our own bananas, in terms of our own lots of things on the farm. So what we have realized is that if you have a farm like this, don't be limited. Do not listen to what people say that this does not grow on this place or does not do well in this area. No, just experiment because you have time and you have space. Experiment and you're going to be surprised how many how many crops you can grow on a farm like this, even if they're not local to that area. So that's what we've really learned from this farm, experimenting, and we've seen the results, we've seen the fruits, we've actually enjoyed the fruits. And in terms of chicken, another growth, big growth. We are so happy that we are self-sufficient in terms of white meat from the farm and eggs. And I think it's one of the biggest lessons we've learned, and we really like to make our audience aware is that most of us assume that any food that comes from the village is organically grown. That's a fallacy. It's a very wrong assumption, because we've seen and we've seen and experienced people actually using a lot of chemicals on their farm. We've seen people spraying those weed killers on the farm, and I'm sure they're very dangerous. They actually lead to cancer. We've seen our neighbors use a lot of chemical fertilizers on their crops, and actually those crops are sold. I've actually had a chance where I was going to work somewhere close to Transmara. There's a big land there where people lease, especially from the region. They lease to grow vegetables like spider plant, sugarcane, and all that. And I've seen people spray fertilizer, or those they're called what? Yeah, I've seen people spraying pesticide, and then as driving back, I've seen a lot of those vegetables being loaded onto trucks, uh, being transferred to Nairobi. So do not assume that everything that comes from the village is actually organically grown. You have to investigate a little bit further. You have to know who you are buying from, because the country has changed a lot, and people are using a lot of other things and being dishonest in terms of growing food, especially the food that they're selling in markets. Yeah, so these lessons we've learned in 2024 are like a springboard for us on our plans for 2025. And we're looking forward to a more successful year. We're going to experiment a lot. We're actually going to expand a little bit on the farm, and put in more fruits and more vegetables closer to our house. So we hope it's going to be a bountiful year. And thank you for walking this journey with us. We hope as we keep informing you, it's actually helping you plan your own journey of self-sufficiency, and also appreciate your comments. And actually, we've learned so much from you, despite us also trying to share what we have, but we've learned so much from you that we implemented on the farm, and it's also really helped us. So this success on the farm is not just because of us, but because of all of you, our viewers and our subscribers. We thank you for this. Yeah, so at this point, we'd like to wish you a happy 2025. We wish all the best for you and your families. Uh, uh, we welcome you to share with us your ideas. And actually, we have plans in 2025 to have a network of self-sufficient farmers, especially in this region or in the country, where we can be visiting each other and learning from each other, and developing this self-sufficiency in the country and growing it a bit further.